what does your life practice look like to stay that cheerleader and stay that motivator?
We turn it into a positive thing. Whether it's good or bad, it's always feedback. And so if you have something that you've put out into the world, or you have people unsubscribing and 2 people showed up to your challenge, it's all feedback on how do we now go do it better the next time, or what do we need to change to make the results different?
Welcome to Unreasonable Autonomy. My name is Sarah Grace. This is the podcast for entrepreneurs and innovators who refuse to settle. Here we dive deep into raw, real conversations with boundary pushers who have pursued seemingly impossible ideas and yet have achieved unreasonable results, whether that's in their faith, relationships, health, politics, yes, even business. All of those conversations are happening right here, right now. So let's buckle up, because this isn't about playing it safe. Unreasonable ideas, unstoppable results. Let's go. You guys, welcome to the podcast. We've got to get straight into this because I'm sitting across from a dear friend of mine. And sometimes I bring people in here and I admire them as a business person, and I admire them with a success story, or I admire them for what they've brought to the world. And Susan Leonardson is sitting across the room in Zoom with me right now. And I just admire her as a human. Susan, I just think as a person, yeah, you've done extraordinary things in business. We'll get into that. But just the actual human that you have become, I love this so much. And I actually want to debunk something that she said. Prior to us even starting this recording, we were talking and she was talking about, Cameron Diaz from the movie The Holiday. And she's like, sometimes I feel like I'm not a very emotional person because Cameron Diaz is trying to cry the whole time during the holiday movie. And she said, sometimes I feel like I'm not that way, that I'm very, very compartmentalized. Well, I am here to debunk that in a way that I have literally sat in a hotel room with you, and I have sat next to you at marketing events, and I have been brought into your incredible community. I have taught, I have done all these things. And I actually think you have some really beautiful depth to you that helps people feel safe, that feel secure, that feel seen, to feel wanted. And so whether or not you cry or not, I don't think is the really is the determining factor on what kind of a human you are. But just know I love how I feel when I'm around you. And I think you're amazing. So welcome to the show, girl.
Thank you. And yes, it's I feel like I'm a mix. Okay, so back to the last holiday movie. Just watched it last night, which is why it was on my mind. There's the Cameron Diaz character who she can't cry. She's totally blocked off from all those emotions. And then you have her love interest in the movie, which is Jude Law, and he's waterworks. And I'm right. I'm kind of in there, but it's has to get turned on. Otherwise it's yep, I can go through life in difficult situations and I can just move. I don't get totally, I can't think of the word, but I don't have to slow down. I feel like I can still process and keep moving, which is, I don't know if that's a curse or a blessing. Who knows?
Oh, well, it's certainly been a curse or a blessing to the incredible things that you've done within a business realm, right? And I would imagine that ability to watch, the mom and the woman of the family push through really hard challenges, I think can be beneficial. So before we dive into your world and some of these stories in your life that have helped create you, for those of you who don't know Susan, I know her as a fantastic human, first and foremost. And that's what I really want to lead out. And that's why she's here, is there's some real depth to what she has to offer here on the podcast and the show today. But here are a couple of things that you should know about her, okay? She helps people in what she calls Geek Out, right? So she's the co-founder of Geek Out, and she's built this incredibly supportive community. It's for entrepreneurs. You should all be there, right? geekoutconnect.com. These are for people who have really come to find who they serve and what their expertise are. And they want to build specifically a continuity business that they're passionate about and that they want to show up for. The other part of her that I think is a really exciting part of her life is she's hugely involved in the ClickFunnels community. She's an official ambassador of the software and co-host of Funnel Hacker TV with the amazing Ben Moot, who I also love. I think he is extraordinary. What a team you guys are, right?
Yeah, it's been really, really fun participating in that right now. And yeah, he's awesome. All of the people that I seem to have been blessed to have around me in these ventures are so amazing, incredible people. So yeah,
Oh, well,
been
you
fun.
belong, you really belong in that space. And let me just preface this because I want to turn this over to you as fast as possible because you are the reason people are here and that people are listening. And something that we talked about before is there's this notion in entrepreneurship that in order to be successful and in order to be an attractive character, in order to be an engaging co-founder of Geek Out or whatever community it is that you're building, that there has to be some extreme story in your background. And one of the ones you mentioned is like, I was $100,000 in debt, right? And I'd lost my job and I'd moved my family across the country. Or, I had this certain thing in my childhood where we just grew up never having enough. And I always grew up in it didn't have flushable toilets. And like, there was just a lot of extremes. And while we don't want to shed any kind of disrespect on those realities for many people, what has been your experience in trying to come up with this really extreme story that will make you an engaging character? What has that been like for you?
I absolutely love this because this has been a struggle. I think since I got into owning my own business and learning, Russell Brunson and like what is the Epiphany Bridge and what is the origin story and like all these things, right? And I'm like, I don't have this extreme story, and so I really, really struggled with this for many, many years until I got a better understanding about what is the intention of those stories and realized like, everybody has a story to tell, and whether it's extreme or it's pretty stable, it's going to help people if you tell it the right way. And I know that you help people with being able to do that, which I super love and appreciate about you. But I think what I had to figure out for my own story was, so there's like kind of two stories that I tell. The one is like, how did I even get into business? I tell that one to my community who they are also kind of entering in that same spot of like, they are also kind of entering into owning their own business and doing the thing. So I tell that story, which is, it's really about like where I was stuck in. I was trying to do something. I was trying to make something happen. And I didn't know that there was another way to do this. Right. So it was more of there wasn't like this crazy stuff happening in my life. It was more of like, I was doing this thing, but I didn't know, like, I thought that was the only way. And then I discovered that there was this other way to do it. And it totally changed my life. Like that was the story. Like that was the most extreme that it could get.
Almost fighting against the standard a
Yeah,
little bit.
exactly. It was,
So tell
yeah.
me in that moment, yeah. So just raw and real conversation in that moment, before you found out like, oh, there's another way for me to tell my story, what was it like to sit in that space to say, I don't have a story? Like I had a solid childhood and like, I've never
Right.
been $100,000 in debt. Like, what's that space like for you?
Thinking back, it was a lot of feeling like, why would anybody want to listen to me? Why would anybody come to me for this, like for life experience and advice? Not that I'm trying to coach them in life, but more of like, there are other people out there that have a more like, I would call it before and after picture, right? A more extreme before and after. Like it's more obvious that they were able to do something incredible because their before what and after was such an extreme change.
Right.
For those of us who don't really have that and it's more stable, we keep coming back to that word. It's like, I've accomplished this thing, but it's almost, I don't know how politically incorrect and correct we can get on this
We're
podcast.
going there.
Okay. But it's almost like the privilege idea of like certain types of people in the world have this privilege that they were born with. And it's like, that's not true. Yes, everyone kind of starts in different spots in life, but we all have to put in that same amount of work. So being in the space of like, I don't know how to tell my story in a way that it sounds like I actually can do this thing and have this incredibly sounding result because I didn't start from a lower spot.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Well, this is so good. And I want to push even further into that concept of what's your feeling or your value around, is it disingenuous to share the extremes? Is it clickbait? Is it a disservice? Is it like, where do you land on that?
That's such a good question. I think Where I land on that is I think it depends on how they're telling it, right? And how genuine are they in including it in what they're why are they telling the story?
Mm.
I do think though it can come across that way. Sometimes it might not be, in my opinion, it might not be the best story. Like if that's your story, go with it. Like tell the story, tell the truth of what your life is and what happened and how you got to where you got to. But some people are like, oh, embellish it a little bit, right? Embellish it so that it
Yes.
seemed like be
Yes.
truthful, but like embellish it for the sake of storytelling. And it's like, but sometimes that's less relatable.
Mm.
So I think that when you do have these super extreme stories of like, I went from poverty and, homeless to I'm making like $7 million a year. It's like, that's not relatable. Yeah, it's really awesome that you were able to accomplish that. But I think that those of us who don't have a story like that need to embrace it and look at it as kind of a positive, because there's probably more people in the world that are going to relate to our story that isn't so extreme than the ones that are like super, that's tipping that scale a lot. Yeah, I think that we just need to look at it as a positive.
Because immediately I get into that space of saying, well, the standard is to do the extreme because we're all trying to stop the scroll.
Mhm.
Right. We're all trying to do flashing
Yeah.
arrows and we're all trying to do, a really solid hook, which are sound business principles. You must capture attention in some way. And so, guide the listeners here on what does it look like to tell a story that feels kind of vanilla compared to the standard. What has
Yeah.
been because I'm the same as you. I grew up with a mom that worked, Susan. I
Mhm.
grew up with a mom that published books and I saw the impact of a woman like that. And so I didn't have this huge, like, oh my gosh, a woman can't impact the world outside the
Right.
home. And like, I didn't fight that or whatever. And does that make my story vanilla? And how do you guide people to still have an impact when they feel that privilege, like you were saying,
Mhm.
and they're like, oh, maybe it just means I've got, opportunities people never had. How do you guide people?
Right. So thinking back to my like literal entering into business origin story, I feel like there's always something that you can identify, no matter
Yeah.
how you lived your life, no matter if it was amazing or not so amazing. There's probably always something, because no one's perfect. We're all human. We all go through trials. Our parents always go through, all go through trials. Like nobody is living the perfect life. And so for me, how I kind of relate my upbringing, which was in a pretty stable home. My parents were married, same house. I grew up in the same house until the day I got married. Like it was epitome of
Amazing.
stable. There's always something though. And so my parents were business owners. For most of my upbringing, they together owned a company, a local service-based company. And the thing that I found in that is like, they were amazing examples of work ethic. That's where I get a lot of that from. But, one of the things that I noticed is that they worked till the day that they retired, which was not that long ago. And in their 70s, they retired in their 70s. So long after the ideal retiring age, right? And they were not just the owners of this company, but my dad was like literally out doing jobs as the labor person in his
Okay.
70s, right?
Very much business.
Yeah,
Okay.
my mom was answering the calls. She was the
Mm.
salesperson, the scheduler, the bookkeeper, like in the business, right? It was a business of three people. It was at the end, it was them and my brother, who was providing a service.
Mm.
And growing up, we didn't really have vacations. Later in life, I learned that they really weren't managing their finances very well. And there was some fallout from that they've reconciled since. And so it's like, okay, how could I now take from that and apply it to myself and apply it to the people that I serve in learning those lessons that were along the way, like running a business, but how do I run a business in a way that provides freedom, that I can go on vacations with my family? So I'm taking, like, there was still something I was able to pull out and identify that is incredibly important to me still. that I'm able to still pass on to other people. I think
wow.
that's my experience. I think that's the advice that I can give is like there's probably something within your life and in your story that you can pull out because I believe that our upbringing and even beyond our upbringing later on in life, like everything that we do, actions we take, experiences that we have shape what we are doing. And sometimes we may get out of alignment with that and we need to get brought back. But I truly believe that there's like we like to say in our community that there's patterns throughout your
Oh,
life.
yeah.
And if you can identify what those patterns are and identify like there's probably a pattern or a problem that you keep coming back to and wanting to solve. And maybe might be ignoring it and getting distracted and trying to do other things. But chances are there's something in your life that you want to get more involved in if you just could identify it or give yourself the permission to pursue it and it become your
Mm.
passion.
So what was your pattern? When you look back and you discover a pattern, what would you name it?
That's it. It's how can I have the freedom to
Freedom.
earn money according to the way that I want to earn money and not work for anybody else and still be able to design my life. I have a sign behind me
I
that
can
says
see
design
it.
your freedom. That's pretty much, if I could sum it up, that would be it of like, how can I design my life so that I can, earn what I want to earn on my terms and
Mm.
be able to have that freedom to go have experiences in life with my family and not feel so chained to what I have created
Oh,
and
this is
want
so
to
good.
show up in that thing that I've built, because that's the other part of it is like my parents weren't passionate about the business that they had. They showed up and worked in that business because they needed to pay the bills and it was their skill set.
Oh, interesting.
But it wasn't like
Passion does not
they
follow
woke up
skill
one
set.
day and were like, yes, let's have this. It was a garage door company for those who are curious what it was. Like they're
Yeah.
not passionate about it. Like my dad loved vehicles and cars and like fixing cars. If he could have created a business with that in mind,
Mm.
that would have made him like he would have been excited to show up to that every day because it was his like love, right? And so
Right.
that's the other piece of it is like showing up to your business because you love to show up, so designing your business as something that is that for you, providing all of those things for you, like hitting all those check marks.
I have 10 million questions right now. There's going to be a part 2, part 9, part 12 to this conversation. My first question is, how old were you when you first noticed that your parents were not experiencing freedom?
Pretty young. I'm trying to
Pretty
think if I
young.
could put an age on it. I would say, it became really apparent when I noticed, my friends are getting to go to Disneyland or whatever. They're going to on these family vacations. And it's like, well, why can't we go on those vacations? Well, it's because if, one, we're pretty much living paycheck to paycheck. And two, if we leave and go on vacation, money is not coming in. If we
Mm.
leave, we are now behind because we just skipped all those days that we could have been working and bringing in money, right? So it was pretty early
Yeah.
on when I was like, what? Like my vacations were to Utah to visit family. Like that was pretty
That
much
was
it,
it.
which is fine. But I
But
think
it
that's when I
was
realized.
real. It wasn't fine in your mind. You noticed that your parents were trapped, even though you didn't know the pieces or
Yeah,
the ways out of it as a child. You saw that my parents are just trying to provide and survive, right? And I just noticed that I'm missing out on things, even though they're doing this noble thing of trying to
exactly.
provide.
Exactly. And, it wasn't a like, well, this life sucks because we can't go
Sure.
on vacations. It was, you know what? Our family is just not able to do that. Occasionally I remember a few camping trips, right? It was things
Yeah.
like that where it could be like overnight or a couple days and then back. But it really just became like, this is my life. I super appreciated the work that they did. And I think I'm trying to think because, okay, so a little bit of background on me. I'm the youngest
Please.
of 6 kids. And so the oldest is 14 years older than I am. So when I was a small little child, I had grown like teenagers, young adults around me. And
Wow.
so they were working, the typical jobs that you would have around that age of, fast food, and they're starting to go off to
Yeah.
college and doing that. And I very early learned, like, I don't want to do that either. Like, I don't want to have to go work somewhere. So even though I was seeing like, entrepreneur life, I didn't have the word entrepreneur, but like, working for myself is what I want to do. And at the time, because I didn't know any better, and honestly, I don't think that I knew any better until I was an adult, of that just comes with the territory of working hard and working all the time. But the opposite, the reverse of that, instead of doing that, is I'm gonna have to go work for somebody else and in a job that I'm probably going to hate. And I don't want to do that either.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So you're seeing road number one is work for yourself. But this definition of entrepreneurship, which you didn't have the word of, was just work equals money. Time away equals money. And that felt like a trap.
Yeah.
And then you started to observe, well, the other route is go work for someone else. And that also felt like a trap or something you didn't want, right? That you just see, I can see where this road is heading. And I am like kind of blown away that you're the baby of the family, because don't babies of the family kind of get a bad rap?
I think that they do. I see a lot of those like first child, middle child, youngest child, like memes and TikTok and reels and stuff. And it's like that they like the youngest child just doesn't really care. Like they're just living life flippantly.
Selfish.
I think that it might have been like this perfect storm for me of like, because the next oldest from me is a 6-year gap. So I was kind of the surprise child. And my mom was like 42 or something when she had me.
Yeah.
And so I had this, and then also because my sisters are the oldest in my family, one of my sisters started, I became an aunt at 5. So I had this weird thing happening where I had older siblings.
Yeah.
And then I was the youngest, but they were pretty much out of the house, by the time I have memories. And then I also had nephews growing up. And so I also got to be like oldest sibling, I got to be older sibling to them because we were together a lot. And so I ended up and also because of the 6-year gap between my brother and I, at a certain point, my nephews kind of moved a little bit further away. My brother's doing his thing. And so there's like this 6-year time period between when he's gone and I'm still growing up, where I'm kind of only child. So I kind of got the youngest child, only child, and older child, like all in one go.
Complete package.
So I'm sure that has shaped who I am. But to kind of back up in what you were saying, and maybe you can help memory jog me, I was going to say something about it. We were talking about
that I was surprised that you were the baby of the family and that you observed it and that you saw 2 paths forward that felt kind of like a disaster, and that you were observing that.
So when growing up, when we're looking at like, okay, what path am I going to choose? Graduation from high school is coming up. I wasn't the best in school. I didn't have great GPA, and I really didn't care that much because it was just kind of where I was at in my life. Also, fun fact is like when I was 18, my mom had lymphoma cancer. And so like that was a year of our life of like, what, I'm just this, we can't afford for me to go to college and I didn't get any scholarships and I'll just do some community college type stuff. But in that time period, I did enter the workforce. I did have jobs working for other people, the typical, like I worked for a fast food place, but then I moved to like a dry cleaners. And then eventually I landed on a job that I thought was my passion and the thing that I wanted to do, which was photography.
Oh, fabulous.
So, but again, like through life, you kind of just figure out like, this isn't really what I want. I don't really want to be working for somebody else. And so trying to go on that route of like, I think I can probably do photography on my own. I don't need to work for somebody. And then through all of the ups and downs in life, I've ended up where I'm at. But I don't know. It's just kind of that life experience of watching what happens in your family or the people that surround you. And then I think that really does for most of us, if not all of us, and maybe some of us just haven't identified it yet. That is forming what you are probably working towards without really even realizing it. Or you would maybe even be happier if you just embraced that thing. Like, you know what? I'm just going to embrace this idea of I'm going to figure out how can I own my own business and still do the things that I want to do, which
Oh
I
my
think is
gosh.
possible because we have many examples in this world of people who are doing just that. So it's not like this unheard of thing,
And
which I
you
had to learn.
started, yeah, and you started to attract those kind of people and learn from those people,
Yeah.
and I've witnessed some of those years with you as we've just learned and grown and figured things out and tried things, and something kind of maybe sounds a little bit off topic has come to my mind. You and I are both believers in God,
Mhm.
right? We are people who religion is to our core in a lot of different ways. And I mean, one of the 10 commandments very specifically says to honor thy father and thy mother.
Mhm.
And as I've, begun this new show and talked with incredible humans, yes, entrepreneurs, but incredible humans like you, one of the things I have seen is this internal fight on how do I break a potential chain without being ungrateful
Yes.
to the experiences I've been given. What has that battle felt like, looked like? And I know very transparently, you and I are very connected that we both lost a parent,
Mhm.
right? And we've gone through some of that grieving and we talked about that even before the show. And so it comes into even more focus when that parent is gone and you're now hoping is, a guardian angel type in your life. But what I mean, I don't what do I mean? What am I even asking here?
Yeah, I
What
think
does
I know
that
what you're
look like for
asking. I have
you?
a response.
Good.
I've thought about this a lot because I have talked about this openly before. I had my own podcast at one point, and I've
Oh,
shared
good.
this in that, in going in this journey of figuring out like what am I doing here? What am I working for? And
Yeah.
everything that I've just told you so far of figuring that out. And and I have had to do a lot of reflection on it of like it's
Mm.
exactly what you said. It's not that I am ungrateful for my upbringing. I am incredibly grateful for the life and the parents and the family that I have.
Yeah.
And
And I
but I
sense
think
that.
it
I
I
do.
think it comes down to, it's not it's a common idea I think in society of like we want our kids to be better than we were, right?
Yeah.
We want, and we said see that a lot in different capacities. A lot of the thing that I see a lot lately now is breaking from, what do they call it? Breaking those toxic things that our parents did. Like, I'm not going
Yeah.
to do this thing that my parents did. I'm going to break that toxic trait
Sure.
or whatever it was. I don't know what they call it. And it's like, because they're trying to be better than they're probably, hopefully they're appreciating their parents did the best that they could with the knowledge that they had. And I think that's how I think about it is like my parents did the best that they could with the knowledge that they had.
Mm.
Internet wasn't around like the way that it is now. We didn't have all the resources that we can learn from and easily like at our fingertips, the examples and the knowledge and the people to tell us there are other ways to do this.
Mm.
And that's just what we have now. I think we really need to take advantage of what we can do because of the access to knowledge that we have today. And so that's how I honor my parents of if I had not had them as parents, I may not have the work ethic that I have. Like I'm
Oh my gosh.
honestly innately like pretty lazy. Like I love doing nothing on weekends. I like playing video games or board
Yeah.
games with my family. Like I would like over break. I was like, you know what? I'm taking this time off and maybe I'll pop in and do a little bit of like work here and there. I didn't do that. I'm like, nope. I don't care. I don't need to do work.
Yes.
I'm just going to take this break. Like I'm not someone who needs to be working all the time, but because I had the upbringing that I had in the examples of my parents in my life, I have that like, you have to work hard for what you want. You have to show up. And so I take those things that they taught me, and all of my siblings are the same way. They are this like hard working, good people that have like
Incredible.
this common sense belief of like, you know what, this is like this is if you want the life, you got to go find it, you got to go work for it. But that doesn't come, there's not to say that there aren't things that they could have done better, like I've
Sure.
identified.
Sure. Well, and this is so powerful because what it really reframes is it reframes what honoring is, and that actually you guys are very, very similar in the sense that you absolutely go after what you have access to.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what they did. They went
Mm-hmm.
after a skill set they had access to with no internet and probably the yellow pages. And
Yes.
they went after it. And now you actually have honed that side of them to say, I'm going to go after whatever I have access to.
Yeah.
And that happens to be an incredibly rich technological sphere that has changed the game for everyone.
Yeah.
Right. And that
Yeah.
it's almost as if you had held back, that would have been the dishonoring part of your life.
Yes.
Right.
That's
Would have
exactly
been
it.
to accept, no, I'm just going to repeat, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. No, that's not what they did.
Mm-hmm.
They did what they had access to. I think that's absolutely beautiful. Absolutely
Yeah.
beautiful. So as you think about that little girl, and I'll just say little girl because you said you were young, and you
Mm-hmm.
think about that girl that wasn't going to Disneyland, right? And that was watching just parents very seriously taking that role of providing for a family. What would you tell her about that missed Disneyland trip?
Yeah, well, the first thing I would say is like Disneyland isn't that great anyway. I have the
You'd help her
opportunity to take
laugh.
my kids to Disneyland, and I'm like, no, we're not going to Disneyland.
Oh, that's a discussion for another day. I
That
love
is a
this.
discussion. That may be an unpopular opinion as well. But the thing that I would tell her is like, just learn everything that you are learning. Take in everything that you can and use it, like grasp onto it, use it as you get older, use the lessons you are learning now because it will become like you will get to a place where you can like it's possible, I guess is what I'm saying. What you hope to be possible actually is possible. The why can't why can't we just go on vacation for a little bit? Why can't we go buy this thing or have a nice, like all of our vehicles growing up all came from a junkyard. Like, why can't we just have a new
Oh,
car, right? It's like, it's
yeah.
okay because all of these things are contributing to who you will become. And you have to go through this experience to become that person.
This is so rich. This is just such a rich lesson. What is it like to be little and to feel poor? What is
Well,
that like?
I want to make sure I don't disrespect anyone who, I mean, we had some struggles. I wouldn't say that I felt like I was growing up poor, so I definitely don't want
Yeah.
to disrespect anyone who actually is in that kind of situation. But we like obviously, when you have kids, there's like the common understanding among like the parents kind of change the rules from oldest to youngest, right? And it's like the oldest
Right.
oldest siblings are always like, well, we didn't have to do that when we were that age, and why did they
Right.
get that thing and we didn't get that, like why? Right.
Right.
That was definitely the experience that I had and any of my
Yes.
siblings will tell you so. But I think I still grew up in a really good life. It was a really good life. I didn't feel like we were poor. I felt like we were just on the lower end of, the middle class. And that was, I think I was okay with it because everything that I needed was being provided for. I had the things that I needed. I had a computer when I was super little. Like that's all one of the other
Wow.
things that I attribute to my dad was a computer nerd on
Love
top
it.
of being a car nerd. And so I was like, 6 or 7, I want to say, on an old computer where they're pre-Windows and you could only type to like DOS. I don't know if anybody remembers that. You can only type commands to it. And it had like the
Yeah.
green text with the flashing cursor. But like we had that stuff because looking back on it now, they were scrappy. They
Oh, I love it.
were cars from the junkyard, old computers from businesses that were selling them off. Like, I don't know where my dad was getting all of the things, but he found a way to make it happen. And so that was just kind of the acceptance was, we're going to have everything that we need. It just may not be shiny and new.
Oh,
And yeah.
love this so much. And it makes me think of how fabulous it has been to watch you grow as an entrepreneur, that may be something that you have never shed, in the sense that you find great value in scrappiness, in making something happen. And maybe that's why you hate Disneyland, because Disney is very like When You Wish Upon a Star and fairy godmother-esque, and you are like, oh my gosh, no, design it. Design your freedom, like get scrappy, get after it. And how has that scrappiness or that desire of like, we are designing freedom regardless of how you were brought up or what skill sets you have or whatever, how has that impacted how you've chosen to build the community and bring in people and help them feel accepted? Like, talk to me about that.
Yeah. So within our community, this is good. It's almost like the idea of like bootstrapping, right?
Yeah.
A lot of us that are in this same community and in this circle of people that we know, I think a lot of us do value bootstrapping. One thing that I've noticed is this idea of, I want to say perfectionism, but it's not quite perfectionism. It's like a notch down from perfectionism.
Okay.
Of like, hey, if you're not doing this thing exactly this way, you're doing it wrong, right? Like, but there's more than one way to do this. And maybe I can't afford to do it that way. And maybe I don't have the resources or like the team to do it that way. So I need to figure out another way to make it happen, because I'm not willing to give up, but I'm still going to try to figure out how to do this, whether you're telling me it's possible or not. And so in our community, well, one of the things that we see a lot is when we're a very heavy ClickFunnels and like funnel type of community.
Yeah.
And when people are talking about like the big thing right now is go launch a membership, go launch a continuity program. And there's a lot of questions around that. And I think that people are getting bogged down in the details, and they're like, okay, if I'm going to be launching something that people are going to be paying me over and over and over again, I need to get it like just right, because it's got to be perfect, because how am I going to tweak it and change it moving forward if they're already paying? Like, it's not like I can go sell it for a group of people and they've paid me and I've delivered, and then I go make some changes and then I go sell it to another group of people.
That's a real fear.
Right. And so we've kind of like gotten rid of that idea of, you know what, it's the idea of growing, launching, learning, reiterating still applies. And so because that's the primary focus of what we do in our community, we kind of come up with this idea of, so we hear a lot of people talk about like, let's go launch a beta program, right? Let's go launch the beta, and it'll be a little bit less money than what I'm normally going to charge. And I'm going to just take this first group of people through it. We're backing that up one more step, and we're calling it go launch your alpha continuity. And alpha is like, you know what, I'm going to like, I may not even have a funnel for this, right? Because I may not be able to afford the software that I need yet to make that happen. And I may not know how to set up all those systems yet, but I know what I can help people with. I know how I can help them. Like, I've packaged it up into an offer, and I just need to go make this offer to people. Eventually, I know it's going to be this like, you know, bigger program, and I'm going to have a membership area, and it's going to be super awesome and maybe more evergreen than not. But right now, I just need to like start getting this in front of people so that I can get that feedback from people as I'm building it. So that's like one example of how that's kind of translated over into what we're doing, of like, we work with a lot of people who are having to be scrappy. They may not have all the resources, or they just spent all their resources somewhere else. And they're like, well, that didn't work. How can I, like, this is kind of our last ditch effort. Can you help me get this thing off the ground? And it's like, yeah, but let's just scale it back. It's almost like some people talk about their MVP, like their most viable or minimal viable product, their minimal viable product. It's kind of that idea of like, let's just get something out there and head towards that direction that you ultimately want to end up in.
You're like the perfect person for this kind of an endeavor, just especially because now I know so much about your past of valuing the ability to say, look, I know what it feels like to be last ditch, right? I know what that feels like. And also acknowledging that sometimes $97 a month for a software or $49 or whatever it's priced at is a burden for people, right? That there is a stage of business in which stacking those kinds of expenses is a real risk for people. And so I love that you have created a space to be able to say, that's great, and we're still going to be scrappy. Like we're still going to figure out and not Disneyfy this and just say wish on a star. We're actually going to get to work and do this. So my question is I think something that's really, really common when you're working with people who are pivoting or who are, starting a whole new model of a product is often as that leader, it can feel really, really draining because there's a lot of small numbers, right? There's a lot of one registration or even zero registrations, or there's a lot of, two people unsubscribed and it feels like a big hit or something like that. And I remember those days of business, right? So incredibly vividly. And so what is that? What is your life practice look like to stay that cheerleader and stay that motivator? Because it doesn't mean they're dumb. It doesn't mean they don't belong. It doesn't mean their offer is even terrible. It's just part of those early stages of business. So why have you targeted there, and how do you keep that energy going through such a volatile part of business?
Yeah. Well, we turn it into a positive thing. Always feedback, whether it's good or bad, it's always feedback. And so if you have something that you've put out into the world, or you have people unsubscribing or two people showed up to your challenge, it's all feedback on how do we now go do it better the next time, or what do we need to change to make the results different? So one of the things that we have is people talk a lot about launches, like, okay, we're doing this launch. We're going to launch this thing out into the world. And like, it seems to end there. It's like, launch it, hope for it, like get all the sales. Like there's this big build up. It's launched. Okay. Are sales coming in? Oh, it didn't really work. Okay. What could we do? Like, let's move on to the next thing. Like what's the next thing we can do? Because that workshop or that challenge didn't really work. So let's think of a different idea and try this other idea. So we don't do that. Obviously, if we've set it up and we've done the research and we've done the proper testing before we even get to this big launch of it. So I'll tell you a real life example that's happening with us right now in a second. But once it's launched, we call it the launch and learn phase. And so when we are talking to our clients or our customers in our program, we make sure that they know this is not over when this is launched. It's launch and learn. And we go back and reiterate, and it's almost like a cyclical thing. It's like, so when we're taking people through our program, it's like, okay, we're going and we're launching that alpha version of our continuity, and we get to the end, it's launched, but it's launched to like the people that you talked to one-on-one and got, your initial few people into the program, right? That's launched. Right. And then you're learning from them. And then you go back to step one. And it's like, okay, what small improvements can we make in all of these areas that we've already done to now move it in? So like, it's like, I didn't have checklists during my alpha, but now that I'm moving into beta, let's put some checklists in here, right? Let's get a little more systematic in it. So like for a real life example right now, we are in February, we're doing our next challenge. We have done this challenge three times. The first one, we kind of changed it. And so this version of this challenge, this will be our third time doing it. Okay. And we didn't really promote it other than like I changed my Facebook cover photo and we posted in our community, like come and join this challenge. And we kind of intentionally did that because we weren't ready for a lot of people to come. So when you ask the question of like, what do you say to someone and how do you keep them motivated of like, only a few people came to my challenge? Sometimes that's a good thing, because we weren't ready for a lot of people to come into our program. We have gone through these phases that we have people go through of like, we went through our own version of our alpha and we were kind of scrapping stuff together there and just trying to fulfill on what we promised. And then we're now in like our beta phase where we're like, okay, we will have like templates and checklists, and we added in an upsell offer. And so now it's like, okay, we feel like we're pretty, like we're getting there. We're almost dialed in on it. So now let's do like this big launch. So I think when people think of launches, they're thinking of like the big launch, right? Like we're
Yes.
launching this out into the world, and they forget all about what leads up to that. Like the first time you're selling something to somebody shouldn't be the giant launch that you're, running ads to and
Yes.
doing like all this JV promotion and like all this stuff. Like I feel like if you're established, you can likely get away with that. But when you're new and you're like, I'm creating this thing, like I'm taking my expertise and I'm putting it into this program for the very first time, like that's the worst thing that you could do. And so I think being very clear to our people about like there's this whole phase that you are living in right now before we get to the launch it out into the world like officially period. And because they have those expectations, they're okay if only a few people showed up. They're okay if something didn't go well or this person unsubscribed, because it's this learning phase for them just building up to that launch. Because then by the time I get to that big launch, it's like, okay, this is ready. I've tested this. We're good to go. We can now run with it.
Oh, it's so valuable because it really, really destigmatizes the whole, you have to grow a business. Like it's necessary. And
Yes.
everyone's looking for the like overnight Taylor Swift Eras tour. And I'm like, oh no, you didn't see all the pictures at all the county fairs. Like we're skipping this, right? We're skipping the 5 million things that went into place before this. And I think that really brings us full circle to what we talked about earlier on in the show was centered around keep your integrity through the process and tell the real story. Because when you go to extremes, people are going to expect extreme results, right? And you're going to do a disservice and you're going to be exhausted trying to backtrack and backpedal and say, well, yeah, it was an extreme result, but there actually were 900 steps in between that I wasn't very transparent about, right? And I think so much about just your life, about how each little part of your life as you were witnessing, trips and travels and vehicles and weekends and all these things that you were kind of launching and learning. You were witnessing what effort was turning into, and it's helped you be more clear about what your design of freedom looks like. Would you say that that's accurate?
Yeah, that's a really good way of saying that, and the connection. I really appreciate that connection because I haven't thought of that before, of connecting life to how do we do this launch and learn thing.
Yeah, I just
really
you
great.
talk about the patterns you talk about in your community, and I'm like, Susan, this has been your pattern.
Yeah.
Your pattern of observation and of taking in data and of putting in a checklist this time. And I just, what a gift to your community and their process. Just what a gift. Oh,
thank you.
Well, Susan, it has been an absolute privilege to sit with you as a human,
I really appreciate that. It's been really fun. It's been a long time since I've done an interview, like retrospective, like introspective of just like being able to just talk and not all completely about business. So I really appreciate you inviting me on here. And I'm really looking forward to hearing the other guests that you have joining you and the launch of this podcast. And it's really exciting.
Oh, it's incredible. And just for my listeners, a couple of my takeaways here with Susan is really centered around what it means to honor your legacy, to honor those who raised you, those who have impacted you. What does that honor actually really look like? And how are you actually the same? And how is that a motivator in your life moving forward? That is something I will carry with me as I think more and more about this conversation that we've had. It's been an absolute joy. And certainly, as you dive into the world of business and want to do continuity programs, Susan's your girl, right? That's why she's here. You can get connected with her directly on geekoutconnect.com. They have got an exceptional community. I can say that from firsthand experience, being able to be in there and soak in what they have created there. And my second and final takeaway from sitting here with Susan is for those of you who feel like you don't have the story, you have the story. You have the story that is necessary. Look for those hints, look for those patterns on things that you were observing when you were young. And don't let the, oh, I don't have a story, just immediately disqualify you from embarking on this incredible journey of life and entrepreneurship. Thank you again, Susan, so much for being here on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to the Unreasonable Autonomy podcast. If you loved this episode, my guests and I would love to hear about it. Go to the show notes to reach out and let me know what resonated with you or what topics or guests you want to hear in the future. I am here to create for you. Look, I deeply admire your commitment to pushing boundaries and going after an unreasonable life. Keep dreaming big, taking bold steps, and expecting the unreasonable. For more, go to the show notes to dive deeper into the conversations that will keep you going. Thanks for being here.